Hello and welcome back to another episode of Zach Does It. In the last episode, we wrapped up the majority of the interior projects that I had planned. We specifically were looking at the redesigned center console and evaluating how awesome it was. I think I said it's pretty great at least 100 times in that episode. If you haven't seen it yet, go ahead and check it out. Moving on to this episode, it's actually a big transition step. We're moving from interior projects and kind of cosmetics and some quality of life improvements and taking a big focus on the mechanicals themselves. If you remember back to when I did the oil changes for my diff and trans, we saw flakes and glitter in the oil and attached to those magnetic plugs. And that wasn't great. It wasn't promising. And on top of that, the transmission actually has a hard time going into first gear. I think it's just because the synchros are worn, but starting from second really isn't a lot of fun, especially when you live in a city and every street has a stop sign. On top of that, my Miata came with an open diff, as opposed to a limited slip one. I actually got stuck a couple winters ago with the one wheel on ice and one wheel not, and the wheel on the ice just kept spinning, and I actually had to have a friend come and push me off of that ice patch so I could keep going. So I was looking around for a limited slip diff out of a newer NA Miata, and I found one. It also came with 100,000 less miles than mine currently have on them. So I'm really excited about that. And so not only did I get that limited slip diff, I got the transmission that comes with it. I got the drive axles and the drive shaft as well, and the PPF. That's important too. So what we're gonna do is clean up those pieces, those parts that I got off of another Miata. They're very dirty, you'll see that shortly. And I wanna get them ready for paint. And I'm really just painting it for, number one, cosmetics. Some painted parts look better than the non-painted parts, especially when, for example, the main housing of the diff is prone to rust. It's designed to do that, but it gets really gross and it's difficult to clean when it's that bare metal. So instead, I'm just gonna go ahead and paint them. You'll see what color in a future episode, but I'm going to go ahead and paint them so not only are they protected from corrosion, it's also easier to tell if there's a leak, for example, or if they're getting dirty, and they'll be easier to clean off as a result as well. So with that, let's jump into today's episode where I'm going to be prepping all of those parts. Well, most of those parts. Wow, that was a lot of work. Honestly, I think it took me about 4 or 5 hours in the shop cleaning up just that diff, the 2 axles, the drive shaft, and that's all I got to. I still have to do the PPF, and I have to do the transmission as well. The transmission was very, very dirty. If you thought the diff was bad, just wait till you see the transmission. But that's pretty much it. I took some different cleaning products. Just one was a metal prep. That was the thing I did at the very end there. You can actually see it on the drive shaft. It discolored it a little bit. Then before that, I used a degreaser cleaner just to get as much of the grease off as possible. But then even before a lot of that, I was using that angle grinder with a couple different wire wheels attached to it to get rid of as much rust and corrosion and other surface dirt. So it was not a difficult process. It wasn't terribly hard to do. It just took a lot of time. But I'm really, really happy with the results. And with that, let's jump into taking a look at those real quick. I'll do some before and after shots as well, just so that you can see the actual difference that it made. And that does it for today's episode. We were only able to get to a few of the parts, but in the next episode, we'll be sure to take care of the transmission and the PPF as well. It's that bracket that kind of connects the transmission to the differential in the back and makes sure that everything stays sturdy underneath the car. So stay tuned for that. And while you're at it, feel free to check out my Instagram. I can post a lot more content there than I can on YouTube on a timely basis. And if you still haven't caught up with the other episodes in this series, I think we're over 30 now, so feel free to check those out as well. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.